Hello everybody, it's Bourbon Bill, and tonight, a very special episode. We're diving in deep to one of my favorite tri-annual releases and discussing some of the disappointment of the first batch of the year. None other than Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A124. You might say, Bourbon Bill, why are you disappointed for the first batch? Because of the age and the proof. Okay, so A124, in case you're living under a rock, is coming in at 119 proof. Compute 59.5% alcohol by volume. Pretty low, but not the lowest they've done in recent years. I think like B521 was pretty low or something like that, but this is on the low side for Elijah Craig barrel proof batches. And then this is like the third release since they've gotten rid of the old 12-year age statement. And for those that need a refresher, that's what the old 12-year age statement used to look like and has been replaced by the age on the label here, which this one is a disappointing 10-year, 9-month. So you got to ask yourself, is it that bad? Well, it came off of one of the biggest hitters of all time, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923, which was a 13-year, 7-month at a whopping 133 proof. Compute 66.5% alcohol by volume. Now, you know on this show we like to go by color. I don't know if that's going to show up on camera, but the old C923 is like darker. It's darker in the bottle. That's one thing I've never experienced. I've never noticed a color difference in Elijah Craig Barrel Proof before until now. So that concerns me. Now, what doesn't concern me? The price. 75-ish doll hairs is still the price. So we got to ask ourselves, 75 doll hairs, over 10-year age statement, and barrel proof still seems like a good deal if we look at it in that vacuum. That still seems like a good deal. Can't complain about that. But it does start to increase my worry, right? Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A123 was the last one for the 12-year age statement. And then they hit us with B523, which was disappointing in that it was 11-year, 5-month. It was below 12. Okay? It was my least favorite from 2023. But it was still good in its own right, but it just didn't quite live up to the muster. And then they hit us with the gem of C923, like we talked about, which was way older, really good, right? It was top tier stuff. If you didn't watch my top 10 bourbons of the year, go watch it. Definitely placed in there. Ask yourself, as a company, we're on our home run, Jim. What are we going to do for Q1 next year? Oh, hell. Put out the crappiest stuff we've done so far. That'll do. Worst specs yet. That'll set them straight. That's what they did. They went from the high to the low. In terms of specs, we haven't gone over this yet, but in terms of specs, they gone downhill, okay? And I kind of feared they would, right? I mean, the private barrel picks are like 80, 90 a bottle, right? Somewhere in there. And they're all like 8, 9, maybe 10's rare, right? So that was like seasoning you to say, we're not giving you the old age stuff that you want anymore, because we can make more money putting that in like Heaven Hill 17 or Heaven Hill 18 or William Heaven Hill at the distillery 15, 17 year. You know, it's smart of them probably business-wise to make more money off their older age stocks, but it's sadder for us. Now, they haven't increased the price, which is a plus here in 2024. So enough blabbing around. You want to know, how does it taste? Color, a little bit lighter than we're used to. Okay. Now, this is not a fresh crack. I opened this like a week ago at this point now. And I did have a pour out of it to let it air. For you, this has been sitting out about 15 minutes, so it's not a fresh crack. Let's give it a nosing. Oh, it still smells good. Still smells good. Don't worry about that. This is very caramel. There's like a cinnamon caramel. And then I'm getting like a a bright fruit. You know, normally on Heaven Hill Elijah Craig barrel proofs, I get like some red fruit notes usually. Not getting that here. This is very like, it just got some lighter fruits in it. Now I'll say this. It's very peanut buttery. Very peanut buttery, very nutty. There's oak there, but it's not hitting you as like a well-aged monster. But it's there. It plays nicely on the nose. It smells really good, right? Let's take a sip. Man, it's pretty good. Okay, it's by itself, not in comparison, it's pretty good. Okay? Does feel a little different than other Elijah Craig barrel proofs, but up front, it's kind of that, we'll say stone fruitish and a lot of caramel. A little bit of cinnamon, a lot of nuttiness. So it's like that peanut butter, peanut brittle note, nuts, a lot of caramel, a little bit of stone fruit. Fades into like a nice oak. But then it gets a little bit tannic and not over oak, just like a little bit tannic. I like it. I think it drinks about 119 proof. I don't think it's, you know, it's not easy sipping or hotter. I think it drinks about as proof. Finish is okay. It's medium-ish. By itself, what would I grade this? It's an A. You know, is it the most disappointing stat-wise? Sure. But on its own, 75 doll hairs is a buy for this. It's pretty good. So it's going to get an A rating. Now, of course, we'll compare for you because that's what you came to this channel to see, okay? So let's take a step back, all the way back to A123. How the A batch is standing up. First of all, this sucker's 12 years old. So, you know, we could be older, but there's about a 1.5 year age plus on this bad boy. Now, for those that remember, A123 was my second favorite from like 2021 through 2023 is my second favorite of all time, besides the C923. This one's 125.6, compute 62.8% alcohol by volume. This is also very caramely. There's a lot more oak though. The peanut buttery notes dial back. I'm getting a little bit of red fruit notes on this one. Let's take a sip. That's better. Wow, that's thicker. There's the red fruit, the caramel, and there's like a well-aged oak note all the way throughout. Man, it comes off more well-aged, it does. Now, probably the most interesting comparison. The previous dog of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof lineup, B523, coming in at 124.2, compute 62.1% alcohol by volume. An 11-year, 5-month, previously the youngest iteration and the most hated. For good reason. It was good on its own, much like A124, but when you started comparing it to other ones, it fell short. Much like the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. Put that here in the blue. Alright, let's give it a swirl. B523, the previous least. Got a little bit of a cotton candy caramel note going on here. Again, it's got that red fruit note. And it smells less sweet. It smells less nutty. A little bit darker burn caramel. Let's take a sip. That's just all caramel. A little bit of oak in the back end. A little bit of fruit in the middle, but it's kind of just like generic sweetness. I still don't love that one. Back to A124. Hot take here. I like A124 better than B523. Even though this is aged not quite a year more. It's not quite a year more. Do the math, folks. 11.5 to 10.9. It's not a year more. A124 is better. It's more complex. It's got you know, the nuttiness, the caramel, a little bit of oak at the back end, a little bit of light stone fruit. It's better than this like generic sweetness off the B523 and some caramel. So actually, A124 isn't the worst thing they've done as far as the batch proof goes. I still think B523 holds that crown, and this was still good for the money. Just keep that in mind. Now you all want to know, how does it compare to C923? It won't. We already know it won't. Put that here in the gold. Oh, what a beautiful monster this is going to be. Oh, heaven help me, that's so good. We get the well-aged oak. Red fruits, it's so deep. Dark and rich. Let's take a sip. Not even in the same league. That's way thicker, way deeper, darker, and richer. Well integrated red fruits, oak, caramels all throughout. If nuttiness is your jam, A124 is great, but it pales in comparison to C923. So, I'm surprised that a little bit younger, it's got a different kind of profile to it, but I like it better than B523. So there you go. It's not the worst thing. It's still worth 75 doll hairs. If these are hard for you to hunt though, and you're like, look, I got C923, I got A123, like should I put in the effort? Maybe you don't need to for this release. I'm sure they'll do better. Could they do worse for the next one? Sure. We might see an 8-year. Might see a 9-year. I mean, look, Heaven Hill is only going to drop these super well-aged C923s every now and then. I mean, they've clearly shown they're trying to trend younger on their batches. Are they just out of age stock? I don't think so. I think they're using their age stock to put into more premium products, and they're pulling it out of this. So, are they still a bargain? Yeah, they are. But it's unfortunate that it's probably not going forward going to be as good as it once was as a whole. There was hits and misses, but you know, we're probably going to see one batch a year or maybe one batch every other year, depending on how bad they want to put the screws to us, of really well-aged ECBP, just to keep us interested. But I feel like A124 will be kind of the mainstream going forward. And I mean, this is good. Well worth the 75 doll hairs. It's just, it's getting closer. The liquid inside is getting closer to being worth what you're paying for it versus being undervalued. Okay, C923 was wildly undervalued for what it was. A124 is not. You know, it's a good value, but you know, it's below that $10 a year that everyone talks about. But that only applies to barrel strength. Everyone talks about $10 a year is good. That's like high proof stuff. Don't you dare come at me with like a 90 proof bourbon. Like, well, it's 90 proof 10 years, $100 hairs. It ain't barrel proof. It isn't high proof. $10 a year doesn't apply. But $10 a year does apply for barrel proof whiskey. And this is still under that. And I think it's a good value at 75-ish doll hairs. Now, I wouldn't leave you there. I couldn't help myself. Knob Creek single barrel store pick from Drug City in Maryland, my favorite to compare. You can't handle proof. Coming in at 120 proof and 11 years old. This is kind of one of those oddball store picks that's old. This was from 2023, keep in mind. We'll put it here in the green. So here's my deal. 60 doll hairs, 120 proof, 11 years old. 75 doll hairs, 10-year 9-month, 119 proof. On paper, they're neck and neck. Knob Creek in the green. Oh, good Lord, what a scent. Brown sugars, caramels, red fruits, and well-integrated oak, all on the nose. And the nuttiness is like an almond versus like a peanut. You know, Knob Creek and Heaven Hill are both known for being a little bit nutty, but the Knob Creek is always like a just a richer nut. You know, it really is. Let's take a sip. Oh my God, that Knob Creek is so good. Way more oak. It drinks way older. It's so deeper, darker, and richer, and really doesn't have that much nuttiness to it. It's all brown sugars, caramels, oak, really well-aged oak, some red fruits in there. Here's A124. I mean, A124 is not horribly worse. It just doesn't carry the oak. I prefer the Knob Creek, but the A124 doesn't fall far behind. If you're not a oak is better kind of guy like I am, that 11-year Knob Creek might be too much for you. So you really need to consider if you're out buying Penelope barrel strength and that's your jam, okay, pick up an A124. If you're out there after C923 or 18-year Knob Creek, might want to skip this one here. It's just it's not gonna have enough oak for you. It's not gonna taste old enough for you. But if you're into those, very sweet, very caramely, nutty type bourbons, lacking a little bit of oak, if you're that's fine if you're in that, oak's king in my book. But if you're not in that, this is a very good pour. Delicious stuff. It really is. But it's not I would pick this Knob Creek 11-year over it for me personally, and it was about $15 cheaper. So there you go. That's how it falls. The Elijah Craig's still a buy. It's not the worst Elijah Craig batch proof they've done. So rest easy on that. But it could be beaten by a really good store pick of Knob Creek, single barrel reserve. So if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Have a good evening, everybody.